and good afternoon now. I'm Toby Mack, President of the Associated Equipment Distributors. AED is the trade organization that represents construction equipment dealers in the United States. We're here today for the simple reason that time is running out for the men and women of the construction equipment industry. While the broader economy may have begun to recover from the Great Recession, our industry is still mired in a deep depression. There's nothing else you can call it when this industry, which is one of the largest and most important sectors of our economy, has lost 37% of its workforce, and our economic output has contracted by nearly 40% nationwide in the last 18 months. That's why AED has joined with the Association of Equipment Manufacturers to undertake this Startups Up USA campaign. For the past several months, we've been taking our industry's message to Main Street, to Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, and to our meeting here in San Antonio. The primary reason for our rally here in San Antonio today is to highlight the fact that Texas has been one of the states hardest hit by the construction equipment industry depression. Texas has suffered the greatest loss of economic activity in the nation and the second greatest loss of employment related to our industry.
Unfortunately, Washington seems to be focusing on a short-term stimulus and not a long-term investment. And while the stimulus will certainly save jobs, it's not what we need for the long term.
Holt Cat has been doing business here in San Antonio since 1933, so we've seen hard times before. But this recession is the worst we've experienced since the Great Depression. All dealers in our territory have experienced at least a 70% reduction in new machine sales from 2008. Our total business is off about 1/3 from the peak. The most debilitating impact of the drop in business has been a 25% reduction in employment. We've had to lay off valuable employees. Our remaining employees have made sacrifices in pay and benefits to enable us to stay profitable. Plans for several new store locations were canceled, and we've been forced to dispose of inventory at a loss in order to reduce borrowing costs. Congestion in San Antonio gets worse every year. San Antonio and all of Texas's major cities are growing beyond the capacity of current transportation systems.
The AGC recently reported that overall construction spending declined last year by $137 billion, and that is now at the lowest level seen in 6 years.
With over 700 respondents, the survey shows very few of us expect a construction turnaround in 2010. Indeed, 88% of construction firms don't expect the overall business conditions to improve until at least 2011, and you can count me as one of the pessimists here. Well over half of my equipment fleet now sits idle at our headquarters, and we are making payments on new equipment that has no work to perform. Despite lofty presidential rhetoric, less than 17% of the total stimulus dollars went into infrastructure investment, and only 6% of that amount went into transportation projects.
Congress's failure to act on the highway bill impacts every Texan who goes to work, shops at a grocery store, drives to school, or visits a doctor. Failure to pass the highway bill not only impacts our ability to move goods and people, it also impacts the cost of living. For example, perishable goods subjected to long hours of trucks moving slowly over congested and poorly maintained highways won't last as long on grocery store shelves, making them more scarce and more expensive. The examples are myriad, but none more so than the traffic on 1604 and US 281. Had highway improvements and interchange construction occurred years ago, the congestion would never have reached the level that it has. The reasons are myriad for passing the highway bill, but I believe Dan McNichol summed them up all quite nicely. In his book entitled The Roads That Built America, The Incredible Story of the U.S. Interstate System, McNichol wrote, quote, "As long as the interstate is the highway supporting our society, economy, and national security, it will forever need to be the beneficiary of our attention and investment. I urge Congress to make our highways the beneficiaries of your attention by passing the Federal Highway Act as soon as possible."
In 2008, JLG had a little over 4,000 employees and $3 billion worth of revenue. We had a market share at that time of roughly 50% of everything sold in the world was our product. Just a year later, unemployment in our core business is down over 50%. Revenues are down 65%. Our parent company, Oshkosh, produces military vehicles, fire engines, cement mixers, garbage trucks, service vehicles, and other specialty equipment. While the military equipment and the fire and the rescue trucks are doing okay, the commercial division is down over 90%. That too is tied to construction. To give you one example, our commercial division makes front and rear discharge concrete trucks. You can't grow America without people using concrete trucks. 3 years ago, we sold 4,200 concrete trucks in North America. Last year, we sold 317. That upsets me as an officer of the company. It's disgraceful as an American. Building and rebuilding this infrastructure will create good construction and manufacturing jobs. This infrastructure will enable companies to compete and grow, which in turn will sustain momentum needed for recovery and create more high-quality jobs. When we go to Washington to talk to the congressmen and the senators, I make sure I look them all in the eye and tell them, do you know how many manufacturers in North America are opening facilities in China? And they're doing it because they have to go there to save some cost in the product because there's not enough work to sustain the people that we're trying to support every day. And once you go to China with a 30 or 40 or 50 or $100 million manufacturing facility, you're not leaving. Nobody spends $100 million on a manufacturing facility and then says, oh, okay, we'll come back now with those jobs once somebody in Washington figures out that those jobs should have never left to begin with. I have a sister-in-law that lives north on I-35 north of Dallas. That's a 2-lane road. Some small stretches a 3-lane road. In China, that's a 6-lane road because that's how big it should be right now in Texas. We hear out of Washington, they're not sure exactly what we're talking about with a road bill. A road bill? I live 93 miles from downtown Washington, D.C. And on Monday morning, if I leave at 5, it takes me 3.5 hours to get to the nation's capital. Don't tell me you don't know what we need to build. Banks will lend money if there's jobs. We spend our stimulus money supporting the banks. Now the banks have paid the money back and they're not loaning it to the independent rental companies around the country that want to buy machines. People don't want unemployment checks, they want to work. We need to support this program and you need to be heard.
Our leaders have a chance to fix the problem early this year in Congress and go back in session. And as I talk, here comes our machines now to display about what is going on out there. Let's support Stardust USA. I want to thank you very much for being here. Any meeting wants to speak with the speakers, we are available for that. So thank you again and have a great convention. Thank you.